Hello and welcome back to the Debrief here on the Blood Red channel. I'm your host, Edward Kay, and I'm joined by Liverpool.com's Matt Addison. And we're coming to you live just after a 3-1 loss to Lyon for Liverpool in the Dubai Super Cup, followed by, just to rub salt in the wounds, a loss on penalties as well, which ensures that out of a possible 4 points, Liverpool have taken 0 from their first game. But we will start with the positives, Matt. Obviously, Fabio Carvalho opened the scoring very early on, there to take advantage of a defensive mistake and poke it home. That'll be a good confidence boost for him. And are you expecting to see a lot more from him after the season resumes? Obviously, we've not really seen too much of the sort of impressive football we were sort of expecting, and Harvey Elliott's outshone him a bit as that youngster in the starting 11. So yeah, what are you expecting to see from him going forward?
Yeah, I think it was a good start for him today. I think he is one of those players that I think you can see that there's more to be unlocked from him. I think it's going to be really important over the next few weeks, really, with obviously Luis Diaz looking to be injured now for a little bit longer than what we thought. Diogo Jota obviously out until February as well. I think he's going to have to play a little bit on that left-hand side. Obviously, we've seen Darwin Núñez do that and sort of having been displaced by Roberto Firmino through the middle, and there are other options, but I do think Fabio Carvalho is going to have to play a part. There's lots of football coming. There's loads and loads of games that sort of Núñez, Firmino, and Salah can't play all of them. So yeah, it was positive. The goal obviously coming so early, the way it came, I think, was probably the most impressive thing. Liverpool winning the ball back high up the pitch and sort of doing the things that we've not necessarily seen them do. The intensity has not necessarily been there at certain points at the start of this season. And yeah, for the first sort of half an hour or so of that game, it certainly was. Tailed off a little bit. Obviously, second half, lots of changes. Wasn't quite so impressive. But yeah, it was a good start. Good start to the game, obviously. And yeah, good thing for Fabio Carvalho to get on the score sheet. Hopefully, that's something he can do a little bit more often in the second half of this season.
Yeah, you mentioned Jota and Diaz there, obviously out injured at the moment, and Liverpool will be hoping there's not more bad news on the injury front. Harvey Elliott departing early in the first half, shaking his head as he went off. Hopefully that's more of a precautionary measure than any serious injury, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a decent chance of that being the case. It didn't look like there was anything much in it. It might have been when he tried to have that shot that the ball was passed to him. He tried to shoot and didn't quite catch it right, and I think that's the only thing I spotted really that it could have been. So hopefully it's just a little tweak and nothing too major. I'm sure we'll hear from Jurgen Klopp on that very shortly. And obviously Liverpool training this week and then play Milan in this same Dubai Super Cup tournament next week. So yeah, it's one of those that we can only hope it's not too bad. It wasn't as if he was coming off in pain or whatever. He was able to just kind of walk off. And yeah, ultimately it is a friendly. You're not going to take any risks. You're not going to leave him on there and see what happens. But yeah, it certainly wasn't a planned substitution. I think the fact that Frandorf came off again at half time, the fact that it was 28 minutes, it did seem, very much like it was a bit of an injury scare. So yeah, I'm sure I hope it's not too bad. It didn't look particularly bad. And yeah, hopefully it is just a precaution.
Yeah, hopefully nothing serious and nothing too much to read into. Hopefully Mohamed Salah won't be reading too much into that missed penalty. Obviously, it's probably going to get drowned out. It's not the biggest penalty miss we've seen over the last 24 hours, is it? And do you think a player like Salah is going to have his confidence knocked by missing a penalty in a mid-season friendly, Matt?
No, not at all. I mean, at least he got it on target. Hey, it's a step up on certain somebody, but yeah, no, it's one of those. It won't really matter. I think you could see him laughing and smiling at the end of the game. It's one of those that you'd rather mistakes like that happen. I'm sure we'll touch on the first goal that Lyon scored, the mix-up that Liverpool had at the back. Again, it's not really anything to worry about. It doesn't particularly matter. I think generally, actually, Salah was pretty good in open play. The pressing from all of Liverpool's players was really good, but I think he was really intense and leading that in the first sort of half an hour or so particularly. And then obviously you look at the sort of touches and the creative side of it that he's shown. I think he's obviously a very talented player, and I think this rest is something that will do him good. He won't have enjoyed watching the World Cup. I'm sure he'll have been thinking that he should have been there, and his his ability and quality deserves to be on that world stage. But I think the reverse of that is that he's got that motivation for this sort of second not half, but the second portion of this season. I think we are going to see a much, much better version of Mohamed Salah. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. I think there was a number of good signs there today, but just a little bit like the team as a whole really kind of tailed off as the half went on. I think lasted about an hour, didn't he, before he went off? So, yeah, it's one of those. It's a nice little boost for his energy levels and getting back to match sharpness. But for the second half of this season, I've no doubt we'll see an improvement on the first half. And let's be honest, the first half of the season wasn't particularly bad for him.
Yeah, you mentioned Lyon's first goal there. Liverpool, much the better side in the first half, but somehow managed to go in 1-1, thanks to quite an amusing mix-up between Kelleher and Robertson. It's difficult to know who's at fault sometimes in those because obviously you can't really hear over the crowd whether the keeper shouted loud enough. Who do you think has to shoulder the blame for that one, Matt?
Well, I mean, I think Andy Robertson very much thought it was the goalkeeper's fault. He didn't look particularly pleased, and Kelleher kind of just turned his back and walked off. But I don't know. It's a hard one, really. I think probably it's Kelleher's fault. I would say. I think they said on commentary on LFC TV, you kind of, if you're a goalkeeper in that position, you've got to either not come for it, or if you're going to come for it much quicker. And to be fair to him, he does normally have a starting position, that is pretty spot on. That's one of the big things with him, really, is that he's very much a proactive goalkeeper. Obviously, we know what he can do with penalties, and showed a couple of bits of shot stopping in the game. But yeah, it was just one of those. He's not played a lot of football for a while. It's a friendly. Concentration levels are not going to be at their absolute peak. But yeah, just a little bit more communication, really. I think Robertson had the situation under control. Possibly Kelleher could have just left him to it, but it's one of those things. If they learn from that now, it's better he does that rather than against Manchester City in a couple of weeks' time. I'm pretty sure both of those players will play in that match, and yeah, they've done it once, so they won't do it again.
Yeah, and following on from that, it was wholesale changes at halftime. I think there was 6 substitutions, which is probably to be expected in a mid-season friendly. I think probably one of the standouts of those coming on was Calvin Ramsey. I know I was definitely eager to see some more of him, and he did impress despite his eventual penalty miss, didn't he, Matt?
Yeah, he was really good. He was one of a couple of young players, Stefan Bajcetic as well. As a big fan of him. I think both of those players really could play a bit of a part really in the second half of the season. You think of both of the positions, the number 6, the holding midfield, and at right back as well. Liverpool are a little bit light in terms of options. I thought it was interesting that Ramsey didn't start this game and it was Milner who played there, and obviously Milner then moves into midfield when Ramsey comes on. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to come from both of those players. I just look at both of them and I just think they just look like really good footballers. I think sometimes you can just tell the way that someone controls the ball, the confidence and the assurance when they pass. I think Calvin Ramsey is one of those players that you just look at straight away and think, really stands out as being technically very, very good. Didn't particularly get tested that much going the other way. There was, a couple of moments where he had to defend. There's going to be bigger tests, obviously, than Lyon in Dubai, that he will have to come up against across the course of the rest of this season. But, you'd look at, say, the Carabao Cup. There's obviously the FA Cup to come, at least one game in January too, if Liverpool get through. I think you'd look at all 3 of those cup matches and think that Calvin Ramsey will start in those if he's fit. That's got to be the aim, I think, for him, really, is just to come in and make a good impression. I think the small number of times that we've seen him so far, he's looked really good. Came on against Napoli, didn't he, in the Champions League, and I think surprised everyone with kind of how physical and how tall and how sort of mature and developed he is in that sense. So, yeah, I've liked what I've seen of him so far, enjoyed his performance today. And, yeah, like I say, there's a couple of those players that you think are going to play a bit more of a part in the second half of this season. Obviously, it depends slightly on, the competitions that Liverpool are in and the sort of situations that they find themselves in. But if Trent was to get an injury or was suspended or whatever it might be, I think there's definitely an argument to say that you'd throw Calvin Ramsey in rather than turn to James Milner. And yeah, I think that's definitely the way it's got to be moving forward for Liverpool. You can't always ask James Milner to play in a different role and a different position. I think the fact that they've got someone who clearly has the ceiling and the talent to play there regularly for Liverpool at some point in the future can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Bajcetic and Ramsey definitely, I think, will probably... Ramsey certainly providing some backup to Trent, which we've all been crying out for the first half of the season. I think they've definitely got a part to play in that second half of the season. Another player we'll be hoping to play apart, maybe for a slightly different reason. Naby Keita, obviously returning today, now entering the final 6 months of his contract. Is he going to be going into this second half of the season sort of playing to try and put himself in the shop window, do you think?
Yeah, you'd think so. It kind of feels a little bit late in the day to be getting a new contract at Liverpool. Obviously, the big thing with him has been injuries, and this is the first time we've seen him since the Community Shield. So it's not exactly been the good start to the season that he would have needed. I think it would have, it would have took an incredible level of performance really from the summer to this point to convince Liverpool to give him a new deal. The fact that he's not played at all, I think probably we can rule that out. I'm pretty safe in saying that. I think there is still a role for him, though. Like you say, he's going to come in. Hopefully, he can stay fit. And for him, it is a case, really, I think, of trying to earn where that next move comes from, whether that's in January, possibly be surprised, given the lack of options that Liverpool have got. But certainly in the summer, with his contract running out, you'd think possibly that might be the end of the line for him. But it's one of those, really. He's got all the incentive he needs to go on and play well for the rest of this season, even if he is on the way out, even if his future has already been sealed, that he needs to earn that move, because there is a lot of talent there. It's just not quite happened for him fitness-wise for Liverpool. I think it would be the right time, really, to cut your losses and move on. I think if you give him a new contract and you place a load of faith in him, there's just not enough evidence, really, over the past 4.5 or will be 5 years by the summer that he's been here, that he can stay fit and play a part. I think he looked okay today. Again, he's one of those players that, it's not like you can just come back in after he's been out for so long and just click into gear straight away. It might take a little bit of time for him. I'd be surprised if he starts against City, for example. I think he might need a couple of substitute appearances and then comes back in. But with all of these things, it's a case of you're thinking, well, it's all right having a discussion about whether he should start or not against City. He's just got to stay fit until that point, and unfortunately for him, you just can't guarantee that. So yeah, be an interesting second half to the season for him, but yeah, like you say, all the incentive to go and play well, and if he does, that'll be a bonus for Liverpool, because it's just not something you can rely on.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to touch on before we finish on the debrief here today. Obviously, flying out to Dubai and playing in this Dubai Super Cup, a big marketing opportunity as well for the club. There's plenty of red shirts in the stadium, and I mean, nowhere near as many Lyon fans to my eye anyway. Is it a bit of a timely reminder of Liverpool's global appeal with all this stuff's going on with the sale and FSG and looking for partial or a complete takeover of the club?
Yeah, it's always great to see these things, isn't it? Normally we get them pre-season rather than mid-season, but I think wherever you go, I was speaking to someone who lives in Florida and had a Jamie Webster concert this week. They've sort of seen the appeal of that, and he said there was loads of Liverpool fans over there enjoying the LA and all the rest of it, and it's just great really to see that. I know it's not just Liverpool that has the big appeal, but it is a relatively small number of clubs that, whichever country you're in, if you say the word Liverpool, it kind of instantly evokes emotion in a number of people. So yeah, it's great to see, isn't it? Lots and lots of people turning out, obviously, in Dubai, and I'm sure the fans who were there will have relished the opportunity. Liverpool don't play there too often, so yeah, when you get the opportunity, you've got to take it. So yeah, like you say, it's a nice reminder of how big Liverpool is, and I'm sure the ownership and all the rest of it, whatever happens, that isn't going to change. So yeah, it's always nice to see, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully plenty more fans will be turning out for the fixture against AC Milan, the next one in the Dubai Super Cup. But that's all we've got time for on the debrief today. So from myself and from Matt Addison, it's goodbye for now.